The other day, I had someone come to me and ask me to review their webinar. They wanted me to watch it, and I think they may have wanted to try to sell me something. And their idea was kind of cool. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll watch your webinar and I'll give you some feedback. So I watched the webinar, and in the first couple minutes, I knew that it wasn't a really good webinar. I could almost bet that this webinar wasn't really converting well. It didn't flow well. It was really bland. Like, it didn't really hit any emotions. It was just kind of AI generated, if that makes sense. That's what it felt like. It didn't have that pizzazz and that authenticity behind it that a good webinar has. Plus, the language was just a little bit off. It felt forced and contrived and very monotonous. And so I could bet that that webinar probably did not convert too well for this guy. And that's interesting because webinars work, but for this person, it didn't specifically work. But then for another example, and this is something I just did earlier this month, I helped a client launch their program. And we basically sold an online mentorship program, and we sold it through a webinar. We did 2 webinars in 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, we did $68,000 in sales, which is a lot. And so it worked really well. And we did it from $1,200 in ad spends, which is really awesome. The question is this: why did this one webinar that, like, even though it had good information and he was sharing good facts and these different things, why did that one not seem to work as well? But then the one that I was doing with my client, where we did it in 2 weeks, that one worked like crazy. We were getting amazing results. We were super ecstatic about it. So what's the difference? Now, I'd love to tell you that it's because of the way that I do webinars, that it's very revolutionary. It's this new, authentic way to do it, or whatever it may be. And yes, there is some ways that we do build a webinar that makes it better, that makes it more authentic, more real, more honest. And yes, that's part of it. But that's not really the secret sauce. See, the secret sauce is less sexy. It's not as cool as saying there's a revolutionary new way to do it. But the reason it worked is simply because we knew our audience really, really well. You see, that's the key. And that's the key that I want to talk about in this video, because when you understand your audience, you truly understand what their pains are, what their real pains are, what they're really dealing with, what they really want. Because a lot of people, they try to connect with their audience, but they're not really addressing a real problem or pain that people want to solve. And so it's really hard to solve that problem and pain. Also, at the same time, they're not connecting with their true desires. So they're not connecting what the audience really wants and what they're really feeling in the moment and what they're really looking for. And because it misses on the desire aspect and the pain aspect, then no matter how good your webinar is, you're probably not going to sell much things, because it's not about having a great webinar. It's about connecting with your audience better. And when you can connect with your audience better, then every word you speak in your webinar is going to be more effective. And see, that's what we did, is we took time to identify and understand the audience better and deeper before we created anything. And then when we created things, everything played together to create this beautiful symphony of marketing. And in a sense, it's very artistic when you do this, by the way, because it really connects with the heart of the people. And when it does, it's this beautiful flow that people love to be part of, and it really works really well. See, the ad, for instance, it spoke to their real pains. It gave them some sort of hope that there's something better, which led to a landing page to sign up for the webinar. And that landing page reignited that hope and reminded them of it. Then emails that we had leading up to the event and to the webinar, it gave people a slight different perspective shift, where it's like, oh, that's what I was missing. That's the thing. Oh, that makes sense. And so they had these aha moments before they even joined, and they started believing that, oh, this could possibly work for me. If it's going to work for this other guy, then it could work for me. Then the webinar took all of that setup and it connected with those real authentic pains and problems where people really were at. It connected with those desires, and then it broke it down for them and showed them a model that they could understand, that were like, oh, wow, if I could do this and if I could do that. And that's essentially what it did, is it developed this belief inside of them that they could make this work. And the model connected with their logic to give them ideas as they were listening, to where they're like, wow, he does it this way. What if I did this? What if I did that? It got their mind engaged. And altogether, it created this sales environment that made it easy to sell people simply because we connected so well with them. And again, that's the key. It was not because of the specific webinar and the way we did the style of the webinar. It was simply because before we built any part of our funnel, before we put anything together, we took time to really dig deep and to understand and know our audience. That's it. And yes, that's unsexy, but it works. And that's why I'm sharing this to you. Another example of this is there's a missionary in Africa, Mozambique, Africa, and her name's Heidi Baker. And Heidi Baker tells a story where God had her basically be homeless for 3 months, where essentially she would dress in the same dress every day, and she'd go every morning and she'd go and sit with these ladies, these homeless ladies, day after day after day. And she did it for 3 months. And God told her not to minister to them, not to try to help them, but the goal was simply to sit with them and get to know them. Because you don't really understand people until you walk a mile in their shoes, right? We've all heard that. Well, in the same way, that's what Heidi Baker did. And so she sat with those women. She got to understand why they're in that situation. She got to understand their mindsets, the things they were really struggling with, the thing that kept them stuck. She understood the people. And because she understood the people, she could then actually be very effective in her ministry, because her ministry could then connect with where they were actually at and what they really needed. And not just what everybody else was trying to do to look good in themselves because they were like doing ministry, because that's what a lot of people do. And so because she knew them, she could actually serve them better. See, that's really the lesson here is you must know your audience before you can effectively serve them. It's as simple as that. Again, it's not sexy, but it's simple and it's true. You must know your audience. And the more you know them, the more they're going to feel connected to you. The more they're going to feel understood by you. In the simple reality of life, when you're walking through life and you find the group of people that you feel like they care about you, that they know you, that they see you, and they believe in you all the time, then you're going to hang around with that group of people because you feel seen, cared for, and heard. And in the same way, we want to be the same way for the people we serve, but we can't do that unless we truly get to know them. And we take time to get to know them. Again, we want to fast track everything, but we don't need to. Instead, we need to get to sit back, relax, and get to know our audience deeply. And there's a couple ways to do that, and that's what I want to cover here in the rest of this video is how do we sit down and how do we connect with these different people? How do we practically do it for our businesses so that we can show up better and we can create those webinars, those killer webinars that make a big difference while they transform lives and they get a lot of sales? How can we do that? Again, comes down to knowing people, knowing your audience. So we're going to go through I put down 4 different points. The last point, we're going to cover 6 different ways to do it. But the first 3 are kind of the most fundamental and the ones I tell everybody to get started with. The first one is pretty obvious, but you have to start with your own experience. So, see, when we start with our own experience, because the reality is most of us are our ideal customer like a couple years ago, right? We've had these experiences in life. So when we go back and we look at ourselves in that situation a couple years ago, and we start asking ourselves questions of like, what was I feeling? What was I thinking? What was I frustrated about? What were the fears? What were the mindsets? What were the limiting beliefs? What were all the things keeping me stuck? And we start interviewing ourselves essentially and asking ourselves these questions. We'll start understanding our audience a little bit better and how we can connect with them. And again, this is exactly what I did with my client, by the way, is I sat down and I interviewed him. Because he was his ideal client about 30 years ago, 20 to 30 years ago. He was his own ideal client. And so I just asked him questions how it was. Because how was he thinking? Like, why was he thinking the way he was thinking? And what kept him stuck? What kept him in a place where he couldn't succeed in the thing he was doing? And what did he have to do differently to get unstuck? And I just started asking him these questions. And when we sat down, and I asked him these questions, we started getting very clear on our marketing and our language. In fact, so this client specifically, he's in the horse industry. So he helps people who are in the horse business, he helps them be more profitable, and he shows them how to do it well by actually developing good marketing. So as I sat down with him, there's a couple different things that we came across that we pulled out and we got to understand in our audience that we used in our marketing. So I'm going to go over those couple things. First, like I made the list here. This is what this list is all about. So number one is people felt overworked. Because in the horse industry, you're constantly burning candle at both ends. You're working really hard to get things, accomplish things, so they felt really overworked. And at the same time, they barely had any money to go around after working all these hours, so they felt underpaid. In fact, he made this thing, and this is very important because you want to get into these slice of life kind of moments and stories that really go deep into these things. So you don't just want to get the surface level of it, you want to get the depth of it. So he mentioned how he had to go to his daughter's dance recital with his work dually truck, his pickup truck that was a dually, and he had to go to the dance recital with that. And every time he did, like he had this like, oh man, I wish I'd have another vehicle to be able to go to the dance recital with, so I could leave my dually at home. And so these are mindsets, these are real mindsets and pains that he had, things that he was thinking about around being underpaid. So you want to go deep, you want to dig deep into that. Another thing is he talked about is how he couldn't really enjoy vacations because he'd go on vacation, then he'd constantly be worrying about the money in his bank account throughout the vacation. And then when he come back, he barely had any. So he just wanted to get back to work. He couldn't really enjoy vacations. So no vacation. And that's something he dealt with. And so again, we wrote all this down, and it took a while. It took a couple conversations, long conversations of just asking him a lot of questions to dig into these real life moments and what he was really thinking and feeling and so on and so forth. Another thing he talked about is how every time he tried to scale in the horse industry, because the business model is broken, because every time he tried to scale, he brought on more horses and different things like that and training and stuff because they would train horses. But every time he brought more on, there was more expense and he had to hire people. And by the time all the overhead and everything was paid for, he was just breaking more even. But he was busier. He was basically became a low-wage employee of his own business instead of actually somebody who's making some money. So in scaling, didn't really work because the business model was just broken, was just off. So that's another thing we identified. Then also, he had a very limiting belief about money because he believed, because in the industry, because people are doing something that they really love to do, which is training horses and riding horses, they think, oh, because I love this, I should be all right with not making enough money. And so that's a fundamental belief he had at the moment, and the fundamental belief that all his ideal clients have, because they think, because I love what I do, I should expect not to make a lot of money. So that's a bad limiting belief that they had about money that we identified and we made a note of. Also, he mentioned how he had to change his whole mindset from being just an employee in his own business to being an owner of the business and running his business like an entrepreneur instead of just a horse trainer. And so, again, we took all these notes and we created language that connected to each of these pain points, that told stories, that got people interested, where they were like, oh, that's me. Please tell me more. Tell me how I can overcome these things. Because these are real life things that people are feeling and experiencing, real life aspects and slices of life of what they were doing. And we were able to use these to put it into our webinar, put it all into our marketing. And that's essentially why it works so well. And you can do this for yourself. You can just go and interview yourself and ask yourself, like, just a bunch of questions like, how were you feeling? What was it like? What were like when you woke up in the morning? How did you feel? What was on your mind when you did different things? Identify those little things that's like, oh, like for instance, for me, like I lost 30 pounds in the last year and I hated the fact that I had to buy bigger clothes. So I had this skinny closet, right, where all the skinny clothes is. Well, if I do a weight loss thing and I talk about that, that'd be a very big thing to talk about. Don't you hate it when you have to buy bigger clothes? So you put all your clothes that don't fit anymore, that you're like, oh, I can wear them at some point. At some point, I'm going to be able to wear these. But then years go by and you keep having them in your skinny closet and you're tired of it because now you don't know what to do, because while you still believe that you can lose weight to get to that point, it doesn't seem like it and kind of give up. Like that's a real slice of life problem, right? a real pain point. And so interview yourself, ask yourself what you were feeling during that time. What was going on? What were you settling for? What was the different things that you really wanted? And why wasn't it working up to that point? Like, ask yourself these things. What did you wish for? What do you want to be different? Like, just ask yourself a ton of these questions to understand what was your state at? Where was your mental, emotional, psychological, physical state when you were back in these problems and experiencing these troubles? And when you do, you're going to have a big list of of high-level marketing things that you can use, points that you can use in your marketing that's going to really help you actually connect with your customer and create language that's going to really help them break through in their life. Does that make sense? So that's the first thing that we want to do, is we want to look back at our own experiences and use that to identify where our customer's at and really connect to them. Second thing we want to do is we want to have conversations. Yay for conversations, right? And conversations like that, first it's like a little bit intimidating, I'll be honest, but this is what I did. And the reason that it's intimidating, by the way, is because we tend to have this agenda when we go with a conversation because we want to sell people or we feel needy, but we have to let it go of the neediness so we can actually show up for people and simply be curious. Because in curiosity and in compassion, we can actually show up and have really good conversations with people. So that's what I would do, is I'd have these one-on-one conversations with people. I'd post it on Facebook, and this is the post that I would basically write, is I post it on Facebook, and I would, with this post on Facebook, I would go through and I'd have like 10 conversations lined up over the next couple weeks simply because of posts I put up. And this is essentially what the post is. Hey, I'm looking to chat with whatever your audience is. Call them out. Nothing for sale. I just want to get to know you and actually help you on the call if possible. And we're going to look at where you're currently at. You can go a little bit deeper if you want to. We're going to look at what you want in business, where you're currently at, and what would be beneficial for you. Then if there's something I can help you with, I'll do it right away. Again, nothing to sell you. Reiterate that. And then comment below if you're interested, first 10 people. Again, this is kind of like the basic version of what I just said, but that's the general principle and idea. I posted this. I got 10 people to sign up pretty quickly. Then I had 10 really awesome conversations with people. And I took lots of notes. I asked them lots of questions. Well, what do you really want? What are you really facing? Why do you want that? Okay, let's dig deeper into that. Let's go back into the real reason. You say you want to make 10K a month. Why 10K? Where did you come up with that number? Well, if I had 10K, I could be able to do XYZ, XYZ. And that XYZ of what they're telling you that they could do is a thing that you want to use in your marketing. Like, for instance, I had a client who wanted to make more revenue because one of his goals was to move out of California. And so that was a really real thing and a real story. But when you ask those deep questions and dig deep with people and just ask really good questions and to then take good notes, you're going to get a lot of things that you would have never thought about by yourself about what people really want and what their real struggles and the real pains are. Because then you can use that, again, in your marketing and everything that you do. And it's really, again, a simple way to do this. I learn a ton every time I have conversations with people, and I'm just curious with no agenda. And you can do the same, and you should do the same. In fact, I would make a note right now, if you haven't had real one-on-one conversations with your audience, I believe that might be a good starting point right now. So identify who is your audience and create a post similar to this and put it on Facebook or wherever your audience is at and see who responds. If people don't respond, like, try to rephrase it differently or whatever and have conversations, or just reach out to people one-on-one in DMs if you need to in the beginning, whatever. Test it out. Just say, hey, I'd love to have a conversation. Totally cool if you're not wanting to do that. Be authentic and real about it. Be a real human. So there you go. Number one is look at your own experiences and kind of use that as a gauge, like how you can help people. Number two, you want to have conversations with people. That's one of the most powerful things you can do. Number three is, this is also one that I've used quite a bit that has worked quite well, is create your own Facebook group. Because when you have your own group, then you can gain a lot of valuable knowledge about your people on Facebook. Plus, when you set it up right, you can actually build your email list as you're inviting people to a Facebook group. So this is, again, one way to really do it if you want to do it this way. Totally optional. But the reason I like it is because when you make your group and you make it private, then you can actually, there's 3 questions that you can have people answer before they join the group, before you can allow them into the group. And those 3 questions will give you everything you need to know to market your business, because people will tell you exactly what they're thinking and they're feeling and what they really want. And then you can use that very language in your marketing, in your webinar to make it work, whatever your sales process is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be a webinar, even though that's the example I've been giving in this video specifically. So how do we actually set this up? Number one, you want to create a Facebook group around your subject using something like a framework kind of like this, where you have like your main identity, your main point, plus then the desirable benefit. For instance, I have one called Spirit-Led Creator. And so it's very obvious, hey, this is for people who are creators and they're spirit-led, which is cool, right? It's an identity. But the back end, I tell them the desirable result or what they really want. Build profitable courses and communities that transform lives. Oh, wow, that sounds awesome, right? So it tells them who it's for, and it tells them what it's about and what they can expect to be part of it. So that's the first thing you want to do, is create a subject for your group and a title for your group like that. Then number 2 is you want to make the group private, and you want to add these 3 questions. Now, I wrote the questions out here because I thought this was probably the most important part of this aspect, to get to know your customers. And this is what you want to do. In the first question, you want to just ask them, okay, what's your biggest question about XYZ, whatever your group is about. Like for me, if it's, again, building courses, profitable courses, the question could simply be, what's your biggest question about building a profitable course, sustainable course with recurring revenue? Or whatever. It could be something like that, right? And people will tell you, well, how do I actually get people, how do I invite people to this? Or how do I get more people to sign up because nobody's paying attention? Or whatever the thing is that they'll say. And you can use that in your marketing and talk about it, and because people will share their true desires with you and what they really want with this, and they'll share their biggest questions, their biggest pain points, right? Question number 2 is basically the 12-month question. Is like, in 12 months from now, imagine it's 12 months from now, and what would you like to see happen when it comes to your online business, your online courses and communities? What would you love to see happen? What's your biggest dream? And you ask that question, what are people going to answer? They're going to share their biggest dream. Oh man, I wish I'd be at 20K a month. And then you can even go deeper and put a why behind this. Why is that? Because then it's like, oh, I wish I could have 20K a month because I want XYZ, right? And so it makes the question a little bit deeper. So why would actually improve this question a little bit? Number 3 is you want to actually give them an opportunity to put their email address in to get information from you. And this is where essentially you just put down, hey, I'm thinking about creating this workshop or this training, and it's going to be about the thing they desire, which whatever the thing is that you're going to teach them. That's going to break down exactly how we did 107K in sales in 6 months, launching a course community completely from scratch. If you're interested, just put your email in the box below and you're going to be added to our priority list. So that, again, very simple. Just follow this kind of model right here. And so what happens with this is people will sign up, and you're going to build an email list. You're going to get a lot of great information from people when they sign up. It's going to allow you to use it in your marketing, because whatever people say, just use the same wording. Like, that's the hack to be great at marketing, is ask great questions, take great notes, and then just simply actually go and use what people say. And that's the biggest thing. Like, when people join your group and they fill out these answers, don't let them into your group until you've copied and pasted those answers into a document. So I have this ongoing document that shows all the answers to people's questions. Now, you can automate this process by using a software called Group Leads, groupleads.net. And when you go to groupleads.net, you can actually connect this to your Facebook group. And so when people join, they fill out the questions, it'll basically send the information to a spreadsheet. But if you approve people without copying the question and the answers that they give, then the questions and answers are lost. I don't know why Facebook does that, but that's the way it is. Then finally, all you need to do then is start filling your group. And you can fill your group by having conversations with people, joining other groups, giving great content, by posting consistent content on your own page. And when people comment and stuff, then you can say, hey, by the way, would you like to join my group? Totally up to you. Again, as you do that consistently, you can start building up your group. One of my clients did this, and they went from 25 people in their group when I started helping them, because their group wasn't really optimized. So we optimized it, and we got it up to 400 people in like 2 months. But then we had 400 people in his group that we ended up launching his program to and did like 12 grand in sales, which is really cool, right? So you can do something similar. Go create a group. Again, this is an optional thing. There's workarounds, and sometimes depending where you're at and what you have already, if you already have a good audience, then you may not need to do this. But when I first started, this was one of the first things I did, and it was really beneficial to get to know my audience. I have a list that I go back to again and again, simply because it's great information. So again, what did we do? Number one, we look at our own experiences to kind of get to see, okay, when I was my ideal client, what did I need? Number two, we have one-on-one conversations with people with no agenda, where we're just there to help them and get to know them and be curious. So we ask really deep questions. Number three is we build our own Facebook group and have questions that people answer when they join the Facebook group. And then we take lots of great notes and then just serve people in the Facebook group, have conversations, start discussions on different things or whatever it may be, train people, teach people something, a tip on a weekly basis to keep them engaged, whatever you need to do. And then number four, and this is a stack of more ways to do it, because there's a lot more ways than just the three I mentioned. And these are quick, surefire ways to get to know your audience a little bit better. So these are the ways. So number one is you can join other Facebook groups. And this is a great way to do it, where this is what I did in the beginning as well. So I joined like 10 to 15 different Facebook groups that were active, that had good amount of members in. They were active, so there were posts happening every day. And I just go through and read the posts, read the comments. What were people asking? What was being presented in the group that people really responded to? Just learn. There to learn, to be curious and learn. And when I could, I would give a great comment or help people out with something. Again, no agenda, just to help them. Two is to actually find what your audience is searching for. And you can do this using a website called answerthepublic.com. That's what you have here. Answerthepublic.com. You go to that and you can find out what people are searching for according to your specific keywords and the thing that you're providing to the marketplace, your marketplace. What are they searching for? Because those searches you can turn into content. You can turn into whatever you need to turn it into. Another thing you can do is you can find books on Amazon around your subject and just go read the reviews of the book, because the reviews of the book will tell you a ton of things about what people liked about the book and what they didn't like. And then you can take notes about that. Another thing you can do is you can follow influencers on whatever social media platform they're on, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, or X, as it's called now, Facebook, whatever the thing is. Go find the influencers and read their comments. What are they saying that people are really engaging with? And then what comments or there questions there that you can find that you can use in your marketing. Another thing is blog posts. Go find blog posts. Just search your marketplace and find blogs about your marketplace and look at, again, what are the comments, what blog posts are really taking off, what are people really paying attention to, like understand those things. Another thing is just to join paid memberships in other communities in your niche and just go participate and learn and be there. And as you do that, you're going to learn a lot of great things. One thing I didn't have on here, but another thing that can help is just actually engaging with social media, where you scroll social media, but you do it intentionally, where it's not just to waste your own time, but where you do it to see, okay, wait a second, this post here is getting a lot of engagement. Why is that? Okay, what can I learn from this post getting a lot of engagement? Okay, why is my audience thinking about this? Why are they engaging with this? Can I do something similar? Because you're constantly in this state of learning, then you're going to be able to create really great things. Again, all in all, you got to take great notes of what people are saying. And when you do that, you're going to be able to create a whole list, an ongoing document of things that you know about your audience that you can use in your marketing and really connect with them in webinars that you do or in emails, whatever you use to sell the thing that you're selling. And when you notice their pains, their dreams, their current reality, their beliefs, their fears, etc., you're going to have a whole bunch of things that you can use that will help you forever in your marketing. And as you get to know your audience, like with all this, tying it all together, again, let's review quick of what we learned. Number one was the experience, is we need to look at our own experiences when we were our best clients and be like, oh, what can I learn from this? Number two is to actually have conversations with people that are our best clients and ask deep questions. Number 3 is to build our own Facebook group where we can ask questions when people join and really get to know them and serve them and start having conversations through DMs if we choose to do that, and build our email list at the same time. Number 4, we talked about 6 other different ways that we can do that, quick fire ways of reading comments, looking at what other people are writing, etc., etc. But all in all, to put this together is, as you get to know your audience, they will literally tell you exactly how to market to them. Use their words exactly as they say it in your marketing, and it's going to connect deeper with them. And this is bar none the most important thing you can do, by the way. The people who know their audience the best are the people who are going to win the most. And when you know your audience, you take lots of notes, you figure out the best points that you want to reiterate, and you create language around what you're learning, then you can just use that in your marketing again and again. And when you make it real, you make it authentic, then people are going to feel seen, they're going to feel heard, and it's going to give them a lot of hope, and it's going to be a very powerful motivator for them to actually change and transform. So if you do this right, you're actually going to help people transform. You're going to be more effective in transforming people's lives, and you're going to be more effective at selling. People will actually pay attention, and they'll become unstoppable because you help them, which is awesome, right? That's what we want to do. And it makes the sale easy. And that's the beauty of it. When you get to know your audience better, it's easier to create sales. So again, this is your invitation. Brainstorm some ideas, you looking at your own experience, have those one-on-one conversations, put that post on Facebook, inviting people to have a conversation with you, build an audience with your own group and ask them really good questions, and go to where your audience hangs out and take notice of what they engage with and see what comments they have and see what they have to say and take note of those things. And all in all, do whatever it takes to get to know your audience, because when you do, you will win more. And only until you really know your audience should you really start to create your webinar, any of your funnel. That's the foundation. That's the first step. Go do it. And while you're at it, if you like this kind of video, please like, share, subscribe, let other people know about it, comment on it. What's the biggest thing that you learned from it that you're like, oh, wow, this was really good? I'd love to know. And come back to other videos. We'll see you in the future.